No ring, no rules. You already know the code. Stepping clean. Leave louder. No ring, no rules. We make our own way. No ring, no rules. Legend starts today. No ring, no rules. Watch us take the crown. No ring, no rules. We don't back down. Lights off, name on, pressure in the room. Cold eyes, sharp grin, big talk, sealed doom. We came built for it, heavy in the chest. Every line hits hard, every move say less. Hear that hush now, that's the room goes still. One breath, one spark, then we break the seal. No ring, no rules. We make our own way. Legend starts today. No ring, no rules. Watch us take the crown. No ring, no rules. We don't back down. No script, only nerve and skill. No leash, no chain, only what is real. From the first word out to the final roar. If you want the war, we give you more. No ring, no rules. We make our own way. No ring, no rules. Legend starts today. No ring, no rules. Watch us take the crown. No ring, no rules. We don't back down.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to No Rings, No Rules podcast here. Of course, I'm your host, the one and only CJ. I hope you guys are ready for an interesting podcast. You know, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff and, you know, especially, you know, my favorite match of all time. We're going to do a little bit of reaction to that, but I'm giving people the time to light up the chat with comments, and we're gonna, you know, get into this and make things we're gonna make things interesting here. As far as this goes, we are getting ready to do a lot of stuff, and so before we get into it, guys, hopefully you guys are, you know, sitting back and enjoying the show. Definitely want the links to be shared out before we get into this. So by all means, share the links out, and I'm going to set up everything as we get right into it, guys. So you can see the new logo here, No Rings, No Rules podcast. We are live, and a lot of things to be discussed. I kind of feel like that, you know, since WWE is doing future with TKO. I figured, we'll touch up on that subject a little bit more, what I think. And I'm going to invite a couple more people in, if you guys want to be a part of this topic. So before we do that, guys, I want to give a warm welcome here to a man that's helped me with this No Rings, No Rules podcast. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only DJ Chaotic to the No Rings, No Rules podcast.
What up, everybody? How things going? There's a lot of things that's definitely I got to get off my chest with this whole TKO situation. From what I've been seeing, it's crazy.
I mean, there's a lot of things that, we definitely need to talk about. And, the questions that I want to ask here. Is the future of WWE and TNA, since TNA is working together with WWE, over this TKO. I'm literally skeptical about this because, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge WWE fan, will always be a WWE fan, but with TKO running it, it's not feeling like the WWE I know. With them shorten the payday on the contracts, which I find that, stupid.
Then you can't even negotiate with a contract unless it's the last 9 weeks of your existing contract, and you can't do it with nobody but WWE if they choose to.
So we are going to go with the first question here, and I'm going to put it in this banner. And the first question is, is WWE better or worse under TKO group holdings? And DJ, I'm going to let you start it, and I'll give my answer right after yours. So you got the floor with this.
So here's my thing with this, okay? And let's be completely honest and truthful about this, because over these past few shows, WWE has took a straight decline in almost every aspect you can imagine. I feel like it's the end of what we know now as WWE, because what type of dialogue are we getting? What type of intricate storyline and long-term booking are we seeing here? Because what we are seeing now is lack of talent usage, no productivity whatsoever, and it literally feels like you don't even care at all about your overall value. Crazy thing about that is the fans are letting y'all know it. Ads have been killing shows and so many other things, but they don't seem to care about what the fans want. All they care about is fixing their pockets with the most amount of money possible. And that's what's killing it. But I know that there's a lot of scenarios you can go through CJ, but go for it, man.
I mean, going back to that question, sharing the links out right now to the chat, but there's a lot of things that I could bring up, personally, that I think that, what WWE, with that question, of course, WWE better or worse under TKO Group Holdings. You got to look at it two ways. The better, I think that if, they was pretty much going under TKO, I truly think that they should have went a different route with, full control with TKO. And what I mean by that is, TKO, even during like Raw, SmackDown, or even pay-per-view events, TKO's now has got the power to, if they don't like something that's what's happening, they got the power to make last-minute decisions. And I think that is worst, especially if you're running a PLE, and let's say if you're in, big stadiums like, Los Angeles or, New York, or, stadiums like that, for example. And, let's say if you had the main event between Roman Reigns and, CM Punk, the realist reality of that is you got to think about, okay, how can I push these two stars to where, one of them wins, one of them loses, of course, but also push them both to where their fans is going to like the outcome. And TKO, they don't really do that because they want their vision. They don't, in other words, they don't really want our vision of professional wrestling. They want to see what they want, even though, they make us pay outrageous prices for tickets. You could compare that to Vince's days when he ran WWE. You could see, some similarities there. And what I mean by that is when Vince ran WWE, ticket prices for lower class people was affordable for families. This WWE is like a, I don't know if you guys know what a leech is, but it's like putting a leech on your skin and it's literally sucking you dry. That's what WWE is doing to the fans. With the TKO, leadership holding them and telling them, you need to raise this, you raise that. I get it. They want to get out of debt with UFC, whatever the case may be. I totally get it, but that was not a smart strategy because you got a lot of wrestling fans that's just literally pissed off. And it can take, we saw what happened with WCW, one of my favorites. And I think if WWE don't turn it around, it could lead to WCW to where, we see another Monday Night Wars error happen.
Right.
It could be with AEW, or it could be with TNA, who knows? But I'm just saying.
And the crazy thing about it is CJ, you're saying all this right now, and it's like slowly but surely becoming a reality because you're not getting the fan interest like the way you need it to be. The last Monday Night Raw episode and Friday Night SmackDown episode didn't even hit the way that it needed to hit for a true WWE show to succeed. And tonight you're gonna do the same rinse and wash repeat routine. Ain't no need of watching it because they're going to lose to the NHL playoffs tonight.
I mean, going back to the question, better or worse under TKO's groupings, the better part of it, I would probably have to say, the Rock's over the TKO board. That's the only better part that I see with this TKO thing. But the worst part, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to be honest here, but releasing Motor City Machine Guns, that was a big mistake. Releasing Aleister Black and Selena Vega, that was a big mistake. Releasing the White Six, something that, pay tribute to Bray Wyatt. I believe that was a smack in the face, and that is also a huge mistake by them. So
Right. The fact that you came out and admitted that you want to get away from the dark character aspect is kind of crazy.
I mean, if you look at it, going back to this dark character, we talk about this, and that's a good point to bring up, DJ. There's a lot of dark characters that I can think of. Bray Wyatt's one, and also you're forgetting another one that pretty much revolutionized WrestleMania himself, which is the undefeated at WrestleMania before he got in the ring with Brock Lesnar, the one and only Phenom, the American Badass Undertaker.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I'll put it in perspective. And if it wasn't for that heel Alexa Bliss dark character that Bray brought out of her, that's another key factor as well that played a huge part too in most dark characters. I mean, hell, Stinger was kind of a similar dark character. You know?
I mean,
at the same token, what's so bad about dark characters being in wrestling?
I mean, you're right. I mean, to be honest, I think WWE is screwing up in a way that is downright perpetual. And what I mean by that is with their fan base, they're absolutely screwing up.
Like I said on several shows that we've done, CJ.
Okay.
Fans are fickle.
Time out. I'm gonna put this person in time out here, and I took screenshots. But I'm gonna have his comment up. You really want to come in my chat and call us liars? First of all, you are the biggest. You are the biggest hater out there. Thank you for revealing yourself to the world that you are a hater, and you don't got nothing else better to do than make fake accounts. You're showing your true colors. Congratulations, dumbass. On No Rings, No
Dumbass. At the end of the day, back to the topic at hand.
Yeah. So back to the topic at hand. I'll show these true natural colors here. So we're going to go to the next question. What is the future of TNA wrestling in the next 5 years? Personally,
I feel like they have a bright future ahead, CJ. I mean, you got a decent roster holding it down. You got an unbelievable group of individuals that's keeping everybody afloat. So, in the most part, TNA is succeeding on their own merit. You know? Like, TNA is definitely on the rise because they're doing something way better than what WWE is doing right now. And that's letting their talent be creative in their own right. But I'll be right back, CJ. Let me see what's the time frame that I got for my stuff coming here.
Now, getting back on topic here, the future of TNA wrestling in the next 5 years. This is actually a hard topic because, I feel like that this this TNA that is produced hell of a stars. You know, you look at Tessa Blanchard, you look at BDE, you look at Bobby Roode, you know, AJ Styles. I mean, there's a lot of list of talent that came through the TNA roster. Personally, to me, I think that the future of TNA is definitely going to be bright. Is definitely going to be something that a lot of fans that is pretty much going to enjoy through this. And I think that we are pretty much just putting it in perspective of everything that needs to be said with, you know, TNA wrestling for the next 5 years. I personally think that I probably could see TNA probably being a big company, like AEW and WWE, because I mean they've pretty much worked their ass off. You know, like I said, they got, you know, Tessa Blanchard. She's pretty much one of the biggest and baddest, if I could say, you know, stars in the women's division. You know, you got a lot of legends besides her. You got Angelina Love, you got Mickie James, you got OBD, you got Gail Kim. You know, a lot of females that's been into the TNA locker room that personally that revolutionized TNA entirely. And I think that personally, from a standpoint, I think that this is one of these things that we must look at, you know, especially in the next 5 years, you know, seeing a lot of names like that came out of, you know, TNA and what TNA has done to not only revolutionize a lot of the wrestling industries, but I think that the most important thing about, you know, the future of TNA wrestling that I'm seeing with this is TNA knows how to put on a show. And what I mean by that is TNA, they have what it, you know, they definitely have what it takes to be a top tier brass company. And I really think that you take a lot of stars, you know, like AJ Styles, you know, you take a lot of stars like Bobby Roode, you know, you got Cowboy James Storm, you got the Monster Abyss. I mean, there's a lot of names that you could punch to that ticket, and I really think that they could, you know, especially with that, especially with that ticket, I really think that they could progress themselves to be bigger stars. You know, like I said, AJ Styles, you had Bobby Roode, Cowboy James Storm, Abyss. You know, you had one of my favorites, Austin Aries. You had Sting, you had Mick Foley, you had Kurt Angle, you had Samoa Joe. You definitely had Rob Van Dam. Um, I mean TNA, especially with Rob Van Dam, anywhere RVD goes, that RVD is going to sell out the show regardless of what happens. And the biggest thing with RVD is RVD is one of those people that really has a lot of ECW top tier moments. You take this into consideration. I really believe that, you know, you give RVD, his flowers for what he's done for the business, especially for TNA. That goes, with a lot of legends, Sting especially. You had the immortal Hulk Hogan. Just you have a lot of talent that came out of TNA, and TNA is one of those companies that you got tag teams that came out of there. The Dudley Boys, which well recognized and established tag team in their own right. Motor City Machine Guns, one of my favorites, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. Goes back to Beer Money Incorporated, which is Bobby Roode and James Storm. Another history making tag team there that is pretty much defined the future of TNA for decades. And I feel like that this is definitely where things must come to full tuition. And seeing this, the future of TNA wrestling, in the next 5 years, I really think that we could see a lot more. I really think that we could see a lot more with TNA in the next 5 years. I think the future of TNA wrestling, I think they're going to develop and growth in the wrestling business, and I think they actually probably going to make it big time. That's what I'm going to say with that question. I'm going to also, there's a question here that I definitely want to put on here, and I want to ask you guys as well in the chat if you guys are watching. So I'm going to go to the chat here. And we're going to do this real quick. And we are going to ask this question to you guys. And and this is the chat that is in StreamYard and as well up on my screen. Is wrestling better today or in the Attitude Era? You guys get to vote on that as fans, and I will, personally give my opinion on this. But, you guys in the chat here also has got to vote on, which of your favorites that is better. Is it the Attitude Era or today's wrestling? Personally, to me, I think that, the Attitude Era was one of the badass moments of professional wrestling. Today's errors, it's kind of, it's not really the best. I think they can improve on some things, but Attitude Era, hands down, 100%. And I'm gonna invite DJ back because I think DJ would love to answer this question too. So now, wrestling better today or the Attitude Era? To me, I think, like I said, Attitude Era hands down. And the reason why I say this is, Rock and Stone Cold, you had a lot of moments in the Attitude Era that really redefined, the business what it is today. And I personally think that, the Attitude Era was one of those moments that, as a kid growing up watching professional wrestling, it's one of those things that you just have to sit back, watch, and and study on. And today, I'm going to compare today's wrestling with the Attitude Era for a moment, since this question is a very good question. Today's wrestling, it's more of TKO's watered down bullshit. I mean, let's face it. TKO has pretty much killed WWE. What I think should happen. Back then, the Attitude Era, it was run by Vince. When Vince had the show running, Vince literally had pretty much the whole world in his hands. Like, he revolutionized, wrestling what it is today. He basically done everything in his power to make it stand out. And wrestling better today or in the Attitude Era, I'd really, I don't agree that, it was better today. The Attitude Era was one of my favorite moments, classic era, Bret Hart, Stone Cold, and then you had Stone Cold and The Rock. There was a lot of stars that came, that got to debut right before they changed it to the Ruthless Aggression Era. That got to make it in the Attitude Era. Batista was one of those. John Cena was one of those. They came up from OVW, which is Ohio Valley Wrestling, which is a school that you can go to that is in Shepherdsville Road in Louisville, Kentucky. That is pretty much a wrestling academy that if you ever want to join, you could move up in the rankings to potentially, hopefully one day, live the dream of a WWE superstar. Personally, I think that the whole business persona with, wrestling today versus the Attitude Era. There's two things to every aspect of this. One of those would be TKO. I really think TKO is hitting hard on subjects that is making some of the wrestling fans pull away. And I really think that TKO is killing the business. And, going back to the Attitude Era here, Attitude Era had one of the most iconic moments, in wrestling history. Like I said, Stone Cold, Rock, you had a lot of other greats that was in the Attitude Era. Shawn Michaels, the list goes on, Kurt Angle, all of that for that. But going to end the poll here, since we got the poll, we only had one person voted. They said it was the Attitude Era that won that with 100% as the Attitude Era. And I will have to agree with that person because the Attitude Era was one of my favorites growing up in the business. So with that being said, we're going to move over to the reaction video that we do. And before I do a final thoughts here on the No Rings, No Rules podcast. And I think you guys will enjoy this much as I did, watching this. But, this is one of the darkest days in the wrestling business that people need to understand. And we're going to play it here on the No Rings, No Rules podcast. But before we do, huge shout out, by the way, to this YouTube channel that, did this coverage, Vice TV. Huge shout out to you guys for, setting this up and giving us a little clip of this. Like I said, huge shout out. We're getting ready to set this up now, so bear with me. Taking off the No Rings, No Rules podcast, and now we are set up. The Vince Grimes versus New Jack. And this is one of the, like I said, one of the darkest days in the professional wrestling business that personally I think that could have been stopped. But, it's like, they always say, accidents do happen. And especially in the wrestling business, you're going to have your accidents. You're going to have your events as this that, should have never happened, but stuff happens. Old saying goes, shit happens, right? Shit always happens. So we're going to play this. Hope you guys enjoy.
A year after the horrific fall that cracked open his skull, New Jack agrees to a rematch with Vic Grimes with even higher stakes. What Grimes doesn't know is that New Jack is out for revenge.
Before the match, I went to a pawn shop and bought a stun gun.
But yeah, I was there with New Jack, and he told me he was going to do it before it happened too. So
what did he want to have happen?
He told me he was going to tase him
in the locker room. He came up to me. I was ready to kill the. He said, "I'm sorry." I said, "You didn't even call me." I said, "Home for almost a year. You didn't even call me to see how the I was doing."
This is the highest elevation of any match in the history of our sport.
Well, I was high. You know what I mean? I was high. So I just tased him. I tased the shit out of him. Jack, I can't feel my legs. I said, "You ain't gonna need them." Bombs away. Vic was a foot from missing the ring completely, which would have killed him. I wanted him to hit the floor. I just didn't throw him hard enough. I was trying to throw his ass to the floor. So we don't piss Jack off because a fight's never over until Jack says it's over.
I can't believe he didn't die.
It's the luck of fools that this guy was not at least paralyzed. And I don't think Jack was particularly broken up about it.
I climbed down off of the. I went up to him. When he was laying in the ring, I told him, I said, "Now we even."
Big Grimes is going to need medical attention.
Could you have got him for attempted murder? I don't know. I mean, I think throwing some off a scaffolding kind of is right on that line.
That was one of the most darkest days in the professional wrestling business. And hope you guys enjoyed this little topic of No Rings, No Rules podcast. But until then, guys, we're going to call it as it is. Thank you for watching, and always be the stars that you guys are. Thank you for watching, and always be the stars that you guys are.
No ring, no rules. You already know the code. Stepping clean. Leave louder. No ring, no rules. We make our own way. No ring, no rules. Legend starts today. No ring, no rules. Watch us take the crown. No ring, no rules. We don't back down. Lights off, name on, pressure in the room. Cold eyes, sharp grin, big talk, sealed doom. We came built for